안녕하세요. 오늘 웨비나에 참석해 주셔서 감사합니다. 저는 ODK 미디어 스튜디오 디렉터이며 LA 비즈니스 센터에서 컨설팅 역할을 하고 있는 강석희라고 합니다. 예, 반갑습니다. 오늘은 그 Entering the USA 게임 마켓이라는 미국 게임 시장 진출이라는 주제로 미국 게임 시장에 진출 시 한국 기업이 고려하면 좋을 부분에 대해 좀 말씀을 나눠보려고 시간을 가졌습니다. 오늘 말씀해 주실 연사로는 고수 게임스의 파운더이며 CEO이신 제이스 아주아 님이 미국 게임 시장 진출에 도움이 될 만한 내용을 말씀드릴 예정입니다. 예, 도움 되시면 좋겠습니다. Hi, Jace. Yeah, you can go ahead and just give the presentation for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Kong, for having me here with Coca. And it's an honor to be here. And hopefully, the audience can take away something from my learnings as a CEO and founder of Gosu Games. Um, yeah, so a little bit about me. I've been a software engineer for about 10 years. I met some pretty astonishing people along the way, and I decided to create Gosu Games. Gosu, uh, many of you know, means highly skilled, and we emphasize and focus on highly skilled games, bringing cult classics, old games revitalized into the new era, and not just the old game, but also different transmedia opportunities like uh, bringing a TV animated series or toys to the market, and also a spiritual successor. Um, 1 second. So, hold on 1 second. So yeah. Uh, so yeah, sorry, I'm having technical difficulties here. So yeah, so that's me. And today I want to talk to you about how you can successfully break into the highly competitive US gaming market. And I want to focus on the areas of authenticity, community engagement, and strategic marketing tactics. The US market is largely one of the biggest markets in the world. Just in the gaming industry, it's valued at around 97 billion. And if you're developing a game, especially as an indie developer or studio, there's an immerse potential, huge potential here in the US, if you know how to approach it. We'll discuss first on the size and opportunity of the US market. Then I want to talk about why authenticity is key in marketing your game, followed by strategies for success, and finally, why now is the perfect time for indie developers to enter into the market. So let's dive into why. Let's dive into the immerse size and opportunity that the U.S. offers. So the U.S. size and opportunity for gaming is large. Just in 2023, it was a $97 billion market. PC gaming is a significant part of this, driven by both AAA and indie titles. Indie games, indie games make up or are expected to generate around $2 billion by the end of this year. So, indie games make up 40% of the games available on platforms such as Steam, GOG, and Epic Games. So, how do you get a piece of the pie? Or how do we enter and get a piece of the pie? So, gamers are highly critical of misleading trailers. 70% of gamers believe marketing impacts their purchase decisions. 40% will avoid titles if they're deceived by their marketing tactics. And as you can see here, someone off just from Google, it says, I hate trailers of games that look nothing like the gameplay. Authentic gameplay and marketing builds trust for long-term retention. So I have a story here. And how many of you have been into a restaurant and have seen a perfect photo, I don't know, of a burger, a fine dish? And when you looked at it, you're like, oh, wow, I really want that food. But in reality, when it comes out of the kitchen, it looks like this. It's not what you expected. And this is exactly how the US gamers feel about cinematic trailers and um, misleading trailers and gameplay and expectations about in today's world of you coming into the market. It's just simply cinematic trailers that don't match with gameplay. And us as a species, we're skeptics in everything. We have skepticism, it's in our blood. US consumers often ask, what's the catch? US market is driven by innovation and authenticity, not just large budgets. Indie developers can reach 120 million active users on platforms like Steam and GOG and Epic. And the US is bombarded by ads everywhere. You go to Times Square, it's ads everywhere telling you how the product or service should be. And when you get it in your hands, it's not what it is. And us as a society, we're kind of tired of that. So some tips into breaking into the US market today revolve around localizing your market beyond just translation of text. We want to see you to adapt into our humor, themes, cultural references that resonate with us today. You know, some other strategies is you can partner with US based influencers to reach your target audience. Leverage platforms like Steam, Epic Games, and also have an early release for your game. And some game developers have seen a 20% higher in sales due to this community engagement and feedback loop cycle. And 40% of Steam's top 100 games in 2023 were indie titles. Use influencer and streamer partnerships to build credibility. Also, 65% of US gamers have bought a game after seeing a streamer play it. Build a community on platforms like Discord, Reddit, and have a community, just a conversation with your audience back and forth. And they really do appreciate that. So I want to dive into some examples here. And I'm a hard sale, right? Like when someone's trying to sell me something, and this is just kind of the learnings I've seen. Some of the partners that we have in my company, Ghosted Games itself, experts from Hollywood that have 40, 30 years experience, AAA studios from EA have built games such as BioShock, Civilization 6, 2K, Fortnite were original. They're one of the original first hires of Epic Games to build Fortnite. And it always goes back to being authentic in gameplay and giving and having a conversation. A lot of AAA studios, at least from studying and from what we have seen, have noticed that there's this gap between connecting with your audience. And I feel like as a game development studio, big or small, size can honestly benefit from this communication loop. Power World, believe it or not, created this entire game with a budget of around $7 and $8 million. AAA studios sometimes spend upwards, minimum around $40 to $60 million to even reach at that level. Indie game developers today are making a bigger impact than ever. Indie games now account for 17% of all revenue on Steam. The US gaming community is shifting towards supporting smaller studios and supporting the underdog story. Gamers are looking for passion and creativity, not just big budget titles. 2024 is the perfect time to enter into the US market as an indie developer or studio. The indie game market is expected to grow around 14.5% year over year. And with the right strategy, foreign developers, domestic developers can take full advantage of this type of growth. So it's pretty amazing and astonishing to me of like just sitting back and observing all these talented people that are creating these games that the community wants, that people want to play, and taking that feedback home and then delivering something what the people want, right? And again, there's a major disconnect between AAA studio and its community. And we can see that because there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of like red tape that people need to cross and say, oh no, we can't do that. And then like there's a lot of stagnation happening in corporate. Versus a smaller studio where you have more control, gamers are realizing that this is the way, this is who we should support in order to get the games that we want for entertainment, pure entertainment. So as we come to a close to this presentation, and I'll leave the floor open, I want to recap on a few takeaways for breaking into the US market. Authenticity, access to platforms, and honesty. To successfully enter the US market as a foreign developer or non-foreign, doesn't matter, focus on understanding your audience, staying authentic in your marketing, and leveraging the right platforms and influencers to get your game in front of your audience. The US gaming market is huge, and the opportunity for indie developers and studios has never been better. With authenticity, creativity, and community and engagement, you can make your mark. And that's where the future of gaming is headed. Thank you. So any questions? And I can go into what is authenticity. So authenticity means being true, being honest, showing, for example, like, Power World, when they started coming out, it was like, hey, not without mentioning the name, but hey, I want to be able to capture monsters and fight them in this mass open land, and let's add these monsters with guns, these crazy ideas, and put them, and being able to show that, hey, what I'm telling you to buy is what you're gonna get. For example, here in the housing market, what are ways to reach and collaborate with US influencers? Good question. So the way that I've at least touched upon doing this is obviously reaching out to their managers, their social medias, and kind of like, if you're pitching to VCs, the same thing, right? Instead of pitching about like this huge money making opportunity, pitch to them, hey, this game is fun, I want you to take a look at it. And just showing like a small clip of it, tagging them, being persistent, having a small community. There's a saying that goes, the loudest squeak gets the grease. So if you're making noise with your community, it doesn't have to be some big time influencer. You don't need to get, Ninja or any of these famous streamers, clicks, etc. You can start with, less tiered influencers, and that trickles up, because all these people know each other. And that's kind of how I've done it. I've reached out to a friend of mine that he streams, probably has like 200-300 people, but he knew somebody, right? After engaging with him, having him test out, he's playing the game, someone else watched that stream that was a little bit bigger than him, and just starting small and growing, and just showing, wow, look at this amazing game. I've listened to my community of 1,000 people, 10,000 people, etc. That's how I would reach and collaborate with US influencers. Fun statistic, just knowing if I were to reach 3 degrees into somebody, like, hey, I know this person, they know this person, just 3 degrees, you get to know the entire world. Surprisingly, the world is very connected. Um, I guess I can go into uh, why Korea, and kind of hit home for me, right? So a little bit about the Korean culture. Back into early 2000s, I would call it the renaissance of gaming, right? Or the renaissance of Korea. They came out with Maple Story, Nexium came out with Maple Story and tons of other games that we all play today. That's world recognized worldwide. You have Drift City. You have ADA. All these indie games that just started coming out of the 2000s and drove innovation. Um, Surprisingly enough, probably some of you have heard of Naraka Blade Point from Tencent and Fortnite. Well, all these games got their influence of their core mechanics of a Korean game. Korea has a special uh, has something very special and unique about it, where it can influence different markets. Surprisingly, it does. Fortnite took inspiration from an old Korean game. So did Naraka Point. Uh, you have Microvolts, right? Hero shooters that came out with Apex Legend took inspiration from. So you have Korea has a special way of impacting industries. K-pop, for example, influenced the music industry big time. Television series, the Squid Game, right? Like now Netflix is all about it. They're people are fanatics about that IP. And that's what kind of like Ghost Games is trying to like enter into that realm. Is at the same time, sorry, I'm reading a question. I understand that. So a question came in. I understand that the gaming industry is bigger than ever. But at the same time, we have been constantly hearing layoffs of big gaming companies shifting down studios. All right, how open is the current investment opportunities for small indie studios in the US? So in the US, and I live here in Silicon Valley, uh, right here in Mountain View area, Silicon Valley. Majority of these VCs are looking not just like, hey, I have this cool game, but backing it up with metrics, backing it up with the community you have, backing it up with, hey, I have a wish list. For example, Star Citizen raised $700 million, and they're still raising money. They're creating this like, massive expansion game, but they have this data to back it up of why it's important. VCs, all they care about is data. AAA studios laying off people is a perfect opportunity to grab talent. So this is the different, or this is the pitch that you can have to these AAA talent. Hey, AAA talent, you got laid off. You were working on, I don't know, World of Warcraft with Blizzard, and these people feel artists have a tendency of feeling attached to their art. And the moment you rip that away from them, they're realizing that the work that they put into these companies, they're not getting anything out of it. The moment you're out, you're out. That's it. So you can offer them a piece of the pie of the game you're creating and say, hey, this is something that you have creative freedom in, and that would sell to that talent pool. So the bigger companies laying off a bunch of talent that's out there is an opportunity for entrepreneurs or game enthusiasts or game business people, leaders, to go out and reach out to these people and say, hey, you were working on this game with AAA and they just cut you off. You have no stake in it, right? There's no creative freedom that you landed it there, but that's about it. You have no ownership of what you're doing. You have ownership here. It's an opportunity for indie studios to snag them. Now, for indie studios, you work on smaller budgets. There's tons of examples out there that said, hey, if we give people what they want and we do it in a proper manner, people are going to come. People are going to subscribe to what we have. People are going to want what we're providing and offering. And this is the metrics that's backing it up. We have 2 million people on our wish list ready to launch, and you can show different market trends that are happening. I mean, VCs are more than ever investing into these games, and you don't need to go, into the dark end to raise some capital or whatever. But layoffs, I see as an opportunity. Another prime example is WhatsApp. The founder of WhatsApp and creator of WhatsApp, he got denied from Facebook, and then 2 years later, he sold WhatsApp for billions of dollars to them. So it's an opportunity for these talented people being laid off, for you to hire them into your endeavor and giving them free reign and creative freedom into your what you're trying to give them. Hopefully that does answer your question. When tapping into the U.S. market, what are things to be careful of on a cultural perspective? As the gaming market is changing rapidly, I expect the U.S. market overall atmosphere has changed from the past few years. Which game shows and/or showcases in the U.S. that you can recommend to us to participate in? GDC is a big one. I mean, they're huge. GameCon is another one. A lot of indie developers are there. Now, cultural perspective, yes. We are very, how can you say, politically correct here. But it's all about inclusivity, right? And it's all about the U.S. is a melting pot of different cultures, different backgrounds. Saying I'm American is like, okay, so let me give you an example. And I don't want to sound too patriotic, or like too USA, but you can come from anywhere in the world, anywhere. It can be South Korea, it can be Japan, it can be Germany, and you come to the US, you do your thing and you get your citizenship. You are now an American. You call yourself an American. If I were to go to, I don't know, if I were to go to Russia and say, become a Russian citizen there, I cannot say I'm Russian. I'm a Russian citizen, but I cannot say I'm Russian. So the US is a mixture of different cultures. There's American Koreans, there is Latin Americans, there's African Americans, there's Chinese Americans, there's all different types of culture. So if you got to be cognitive enough or cautious enough to knowing that there's a lot of different cultures you're tapping into, and being very careful on how you navigate and say certain things and do certain things, right? So, and be respectful of the culture you're trying to tap into, for example. One of the biggest backlashes that happened now recently was Assassin's Creed. When they put an African into Japanese culture, the world blew up, but they knew that it was a historical figure in Japan, and it caused a lot of backlash. But us as American, we understand, right? So the United States is a melting pot of different cultures, and you got to navigate it very carefully and using inclusive words. That's as much as I could say about cultural perspective and how careful saying certain words is not appropriate.
All right, Jace. Thank you so much, like for answering the even questions, checking out. I really appreciate what you've been talking about, giving the presentation and everything. If you don't mind, like I would do like to ask you, if you can kindly share about like a story about your own company and how what you guys are doing, and how, and I know it's still in there's some information that has to be contained and
Yeah.
cannot be shared at this moment. But if you don't mind, go ahead and talk about your story, and then that way the audience can get probably come up with the more information. I mean, also like some questions as well.
Yeah. So Ghost Games, I used to play Korean games, and uh, I found out that the word, meant highly skilled. And I played with some Korean friends online in the internet, and they're like, "Gosu, Gosu, Gosu." And I was like, what does that mean? So it kind of stuck with me. And we want to emphasize specifically on esports game type of games, cult classics, revitalizing them into today's market, not just saying, hey, here's the old game, but also saying, hey, here's a spiritual successor with better graphics, storyline, etc. And then we also partnered up with a few Hollywood executives where we want to create a TV animated series with it. So we're building and expanding off of the IP rather than just saying, hey, here is the old game. Now, some of the things that we want to do provide is like software as a service, um, like an anti-cheat mechanism with using machine learning and deep learning. I personally don't like saying AI. I've worked in the field in my real life job at one of the fan companies. So providing this software of anti-cheat, figuring out exactly human inputs and what's humanly capable of the pro player to the more novice player, and training our model that way. And then also, this can lead and jump over into better matchmaking. So we're building not just video games and IP, but we're also building software as a service uh, applications that help with matchmaking uh, and anti-cheat mechanisms. And we're also um, building communities around this, right? And hopefully we can tap it into the market and work with some game studios that are developing amazing games, as we all saw, and providing them, a software where it helps them with anti-cheat and matchmaking. We're also utilizing and creating like a spectator view. It's more of like an in-game spectator view, not just you're watching somebody off of like YouTube or Twitch, but we're also building that type of technology. I can say this, I used to work at Twitch as a software engineer, and I worked in the video playback team. So I kind of have my learnings on streaming, and I guess you can say I build my network there with a few streamers where we're kind of just hitting the ground running and testing these applications that we're building about to go to market.
Thank you so much. That was, brief but a great, explanation about like your, experience. So, we talked about many things, and obviously you recommended like what, need to keep in mind it in terms of when you entering the US market. So from your point of view, what do you think? Like, what is the, again, if you just summarize it up, you can just, there are a lot of points that you wanted to, kind of emphasize, but what are the main key points you can just say, keep those in mind, in terms of like entering the US market again?
Yeah, build something that people want, listen to the community, focus on a specific like game theme, and don't do this, like I don't know if you can still see my screen. Don't promote the best burger and then give them something flat, right? Like that would just ruin your reputation. And it's hard, right? Because here's the other thing I didn't really touch up on, this is credibility, right? It's you build your first game, you hype it up, hey, it's good. Build your second game. Your second game, it only gets easier as you go along, like your second game, but give people what they want and also what you're telling them that they're going to get. Let them actually get it. I think the downfall of a lot uh, of a lot of studios, and the reason why a lot of layoffs, they're promoting something. I mean, look at just mobile games, right? I mean, now there's a whole clause in the policies of Apple that if your game is not what you're promoting, they take you out of the App Store. So just be um, cognitive of what you're selling, right? Make sure it is what it is. You're not just selling snake oil and blowing a ton of money in the cinematic trailers when in reality you can just play the game and people will love it.
Got it. Thank you so much. So I guess unless like there are more questions or or some other things that like people in the audience like would like to know, then I guess like we can just finish this session, this webinar. Um, 혹시라도 여기 지금 보고 계신 분들 중에서 그 좀 더 질문이 있으시거나 게임 인더스트리, 그러니까 미국 게임 인더스트리 진출하는 부분에 있어서 궁금하신 것들이 있으시면 질문해 주시면 제가 지금 연사분에게 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 혹시 있으신가요? 더 질문하실 부분들이? 네, 없으시면 오늘 저기 강연은 여기까지 마치고 다음 기회에 또 찾아뵙도록 하겠습니다. Jace, so I think yeah, we just this is like enough presentation for today. We just you gave a great presentation about the market, US market, entering the US market. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I guess we, like you can take a lot of things from today's, presentation. I look forward to another opportunity that you can give us like another, new information. And so, we can just do this, webinar again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And
Do
again,
you,
thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it. And I honor the fact that I'm here. Thank you. It's an opportunity.
right. Thank you so much. 네, 지금까지 웨비나 참석해 주셔서 너무 감사드리고요. 예, 혹시 그 영어가 좀 불편하셔서 참여 못 하시는 분들도 있으실 것 같아서 나중에 영상을 편집해서 자막을 넣어서 제공해 드릴 예정입니다. 나중에 자료가 다시 보시거나 필요하신 분들은 저희 웨비나 영상을 나중에 확인할 수 있으십니다. 예, 여태까지 참여해 주셔서 감사하고요. 예, 다음에 또 뵙겠습니다. 예, 감사합니다.